Hey, what's up, guys, and welcome to episode 36 of Talk4, the quickfire podcast where we ask four great questions to unique and interesting people. Behind the mic today is your host, Louis Skupien, that's me, and our special guest for today, Jefferson Rogers, is going to be answering our questions today. Jefferson, please say hi, introduce yourself, and give us a quick rundown of who you are and what you do before I shoot some questions.
Thanks, Louis. What's going on, everybody? Jefferson Rogers here out of St. George, Utah. I have a replacement window business that I've been running for the past 4.5 years. And over the past 2 years, I've also gotten into business advising, and I'm writing a book right now. And it's been a fun ride for me. 5 years ago, I was dealing with drugs and alcohol, and marriage was on the verge of taking a wrong turn, and joined a mentor group, turned it all around, got sober, started a business, and now have produced close to $40 million in revenue. And I love helping people. So doing the advising and coaching, writing a book, and also have gotten into over the past 2 years doing real estate investing and in partners in a couple $100 million in real estate, working on a $12 million raise right now for an Airbnb project. There's a lot going on. I'm excited to get started with you, Louis.
Awesome. That's great to hear. Yeah, no, I mean, I've been following you for a little while, and I have to say, your content output on Instagram has gone up so much recently, and all the stuff that you're putting out is it's just fantastic. And it's also helps me as well because I'm running my own business and I've got the podcast and stuff as well. So it's really great to get bits of advice from you and so on. But just quickly, just from what you were saying there, so what's the book called then? I believe it's All In, is it?
All in. Yep.
Oh,
Get unstuck, accelerate, and go further, faster.
That's a powerful title, isn't it? And so what was the mentorship group as well then that you joined into? Was it Grant Cardone's one by any chance?
So back in 2017, I joined a mentor. It is, yep. It was Grant Cardone.
Awesome. Wow, there you go. I've actually just joined the Cardone University as well. So hopefully following in some fine footsteps here. But anyway, Jefferson, if you're good to go, shall we jump on with question number one?
Let's do it, Louis.
Awesome. Right. So for question one, tell me about your backstory. So what were you doing in the years leading up to starting your own business? And what was it that led you to start this entirely different and better life?
There was a lot of things that led up to it. I'd struggled with drugs and alcohol, and there was a lot of things that I wanted to do with my life that I wasn't doing because I was justifying this behavior of drinking, smoking weed every day.
Really?
And the reality is some people can do it on a social basis and they could do it and not have it affect their life like it did mine, but that was not me. So there was these seeds that were planted along the way, and I wanted to do better things. I wanted to be a better example. I wanted to be a leader and a communicator on a much, much higher level. And I knew for that to happen, the drugs and alcohol were not going to be able to be a part of the situation. So as soon as I was able to get that out of the way, it opened up just all kinds of opportunities and belief in myself. And within 2 months, I started my own business. And within 6 months, I had pretty much tripled my income. And I just traded one set of addictions and drugs and alcohol for another set. It just happened to be, success and personal development and business and growth as a leader.
Yeah, that's a fantastic story to have. And, it makes me ask the question then as well. I'm sure that there's a lot of people listening, and there will be definitely be people who've heard this as well. But, it takes a lot to get off addiction, doesn't it? And just out of interest, what did it take for you to get off of that as well? Was there anything particular that super helped you, to get on the right track? What did it take for you to get off?
You know what? For me, I went to an Alcoholics Anonymous class when I was 18, I think.
Right.
So this was years and years and years before I ever really got sober. But it was a terrible experience for me. It was negative. There was a bunch of people in there telling their sob stories. It was this really dark, dreary place. It gave me just a terrible feeling. So all the struggles that I had all the years after that, that was always in the back of my mind. Like, is this the only way that I'm going to ever be able to get help to get sober? To have to go to these dreary, negative meetings? So maybe that kept me from reaching my goal quicker. But when I finally made the decision, it was all about just being fed up with the patterns that I had been repeating my life and the results that I was getting or lack of, and just coming to terms with it in my own mind that I could no longer accept the things that I was doing for myself. I couldn't have it be acceptable in my life
Sure.
anymore. So it was just a big decision for me. And I had to just take one set of habits and get rid of those so I could make room for new habits. And it was scary. It was challenging. There was, this uncertainty about whether or not I was going to be able to stay sober because of so many years of continuing the same patterns over and over.
Right.
But now it's been, 4.5 years sober, and I've got, just a whole different set of habits and disciplines that have made it possible for me to stay sober and no longer have it even be an issue.
So good to hear. So good to hear, man. I mean, on your website, looking through it all, you talk a lot about, the all in phrase, the book's going to be called All In. You've got the podcast called All In. So would you say, getting off that and, going sober was the first all in decision that you made?
That's where that phrase started to come from. Yeah. So it's not very common to see people be able to overcome addiction just in one big decision. And I did, man. I went all in on myself and my future and myself as a leader. And when I look back, I was all in on drugs and alcohol and partying and all of those behaviors too. So not necessarily the first, but definitely a big decision in my life that changed the trajectory for the positive. That is very uncommon. And now I've been able to apply that same type of mentality and focus and discipline on a lot of other areas of which have brought a lot of success.
Good man. So glad to hear it. Right. Well, I mean, this is going to lead on perfectly to the second question then as well. So, let's talk about what happened after that then. So, you started this business and you grew your business, from scratch to a multi-million-dollar business in just 4 years. I think you said 40 million. So my question is, how did that actually happen then? What was it for you that you were doing which caused such aggressive growth in this business?
Well, for one, I had a good business model. I didn't realize it at the time that there was as much opportunity as there was, because I had been a part of other smaller businesses that had limited thinking, and they're still around, but they're still doing just smaller numbers, which, they can still make a great living doing that. And I would have been able to make a great living at that level as well. But one of the things that separated me and helped me to grow as fast and to such big numbers was hanging around people that thought a lot bigger and being around these business owners, entrepreneurs, executives that operated at such high levels that it stretched the way that I thought about my own scenario.
Right.
And that's the power of association. The people that you associate with raise your lid and raise your level of awareness and perspective based off of the things that they've been through in their life, from all the wins and all the lessons that they've learned to also being able to learn from their mistakes as well. So in the first couple of years, that mentor program helped me out a lot, just to get out of my own way, get sober, and start taking action in a positive direction. And I grew a business very quickly. But over the first 2 years, I did $1 million the first year. I did $2 million the second year, which was phenomenal. Super excited about it.
Amazing.
Made more money than I'd ever made before. But in the third year, I went from 2 million to 10 million, and it was a huge jump. And the biggest contributor there was that same concept of association. And I actually hired a consultant in my business. The biggest investment that I'd ever made at that point in my life. It was $60,000. I couldn't even afford it. The guy let me put it on 2 credit cards and had to make a bunch of payments so I could afford it. But the new perspective that it brought, his experience in my industry, and all of the different systems and processes and meetings and culture and leadership that I put in place in my business, helped it explode by 500% in 1 year.
That is absolutely wild. I mean, that is exponential results, to be honest. And what you were saying there reminds me of, one of the kind of standard quotes you see going around on Instagram, isn't it? It's a bit like, when you surround yourself with 3 wasted friends, you'll be the 4th. And then if you have 3 successful friends, you're going to be the 4th one. So that really resonates with what you were saying there. And I just want to ask as well on the same subject too. In the meantime, you've obviously gone and you've made this fantastic personal brand as well for yourself on social media, not just the business. So I'd love to ask, do you have any tips, for finding the time to build a personal brand as well in the middle of a business, where you've got running and work of it all and customer support, how do you find the time for it?
It has to be a priority. I've had a lot of influences in my life that have led me down the path of creating a brand. Some of them were direct, some of them were indirect. You see people like Gary Vee talk about the importance of having a personal brand and just starting as small as just picking up your phone and doing some selfies and just talking about your own situation. Everybody has a unique situation, and there is an audience for your unique situation, no matter what that is. You just got to put yourself out there. And Brad Lee was another one, Grant Cardone. And they all talked about this personal brand and the power of getting your story out there and being known and getting out of obscurity. So I've just made it a priority. I've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on building my brand and countless hours in addition to everything else I've got going on as a investor and a business owner and a father and a husband and an author. The reality is if you want to ever do anything significant with your life, there is no balance. Balance is a complete bullshit story. You have to do everything and you have to do it all good. Otherwise, you're just going to mix in with all the other average and ordinary people. Yeah. So I'm not saying that I'm anything special, but I've certainly moved the needle in my favor by putting in extra work, reading extra books, paying extra money to be a part of masterminds and mentorships and coaching and consulting. I want things to happen fast, and they never happen as fast as I want to, but we do have some advantages in 2022 with technology and with cell phones and travel that we can accelerate things at a faster pace than we've ever been able to in the history of this world.
It's great advice. Definitely. That makes total sense. Just out of interest as well, just having to think about what you were saying there too. Do you think that what you've done with your personal brand has also grown your business? Or do you also find that the business side of things has helped grow your personal brand too? Or do you think that they've been individual successes by themselves?
No, I think they help build each other. So the business has helped me have the resources to build a personal brand and build a set like this and to pay for videographers and to pay for a social media team to help me take all the content and chop it up and turn it into what you guys see on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So without the business, I wouldn't have the resources to do it at the level that I'm doing it. I would still be doing it. If you look back at my Facebook back in 2017, that was me standing there with the phone in my hand, trying to get out of obscurity and let everybody know what my current situation was, where I was going, my goals, my ambitions, and the person that I was trying to become. So you don't have to have a lot of resources to start producing content to work on your personal brand. Just with that cell phone you got in your pocket anyways, pick it up and start making some content. But then also what's happened now after spending 4 years producing content and building it to a higher and higher and higher level is now I've got this brand and this credibility as somebody who's created an incredible business and that's savvy inside a business and as a leader and a communicator and a speaker and advisor. So I've got my advising business on top of that, and I'm helping other businesses scale and work towards an exit or just increase their revenue. And it's also helped me expand my business. Somebody jumps on to do research on JKR windows. They see Jefferson Rogers on everything. Yeah. And the brand that I've built, the person that I am, the company that I've built, and the core values, what we represent, what sets us apart, and what we stand for, and what they're potentially looking at being a part of. And I've recruited some incredible people over the past 4 years because they get a pretty good picture of what they're getting involved in before they ever take a step through the door, just by looking at who I am and what the company, the way that I talk about the company.
Yeah, no, it's a great point. You've done a fantastic thing with what you've done. And I think as well, it's just that there's kind of a misconception around content creation on social media. But if you actually go and look at what the big dogs are actually all doing and stuff, they're all just whipping out a phone and just recording and just making, little bits of content here and there. And you can just do that from anywhere. I mean, you look at Grant Cardone, Gary Vee, it's just, standard videos that anyone can do just by whipping out their phone. But I think people think too hard into it. They think I need all this gear. I'm going to need the camera set up and the microphone set up, and I need to have a team of people doing this. And people make it seem a lot harder than it might actually be, where realistically the best stuff is just where you grab a phone and, flip the camera over and just take a video. But yeah, no, so great advice there. Talking about some more advice actually on for question 3 and some of the stuff that you've been saying recently as well. So, in some of your content recently, I've seen you talking about how a high-paying job is actually sometimes preferential to starting a business, which, as we both know, it can be hell on earth. But my question is, if you're running at a bit of a crossroads in life, how can you actually tell if business building and running it is more for you than a job would be if you aren't sure which path to go down? Is there a way to test the water with business, do you think, or do you really have to just go all in to find out what your thing is?
You know what? There is some indicators about whether or not you're cut out for entrepreneurship. And I always talk about the habits that you have, like your current set of habits that you have inside of whatever your current situation is, whether it's a 9-to-5 job or you're a salesperson for another company. Whatever habits you have currently are going to be very similar to the habits that you take with you to start your own business. And if you're doing minimal, if you're showing up right at the time that you're supposed to be there, or even a little bit late, and you're leaving just as soon as the buzzer hits and you can go home, that's just one indicator. And then in the actual work that you're doing while you're there, are you giving it everything that you've got? Are you asking for more? Are you applying yourself in areas that you aren't expected to apply yourself? Are you doing more than you're getting paid for? Because that's the same type of mentality, whether you believe it or not, that you're going to take to your own business. You are going to have more pride. You are going to believe in it more as your own business, but very similar habit patterns you're going to take over to your own business. So those are some of the main indicators that I pay attention to and that I talk about, because it was me at one point too in my life and in my career, and the things that I did coming from working at restaurants and working construction, and the mentality that I had as a stoner and an alcoholic and wanting to get home early so I could start drinking, smoking weed again without anybody having to be there to see my red eyes at work. And early on in business, I was scared because I knew that I had some of these habits that may not produce the best results.
Makes sense, yeah.
And I just had to offset those. But then you're right, man. There is a huge opportunity depending on where you're at. If you do apply those things, you are going to separate yourself from everybody else, because most people fit into that category of doing just enough to get by and complaining if they're asked to do more because they don't get paid for that. But if you are willing to do more, show up early, stay late, do more than you're getting paid for, and you're working for the right organization and the right leadership, you're going to be able to advance faster than anybody else around you and develop yourself as one of the top people in that company very quickly. And the reality is the majority of millionaires in the United States and in the world work for somebody else.
Damn, there you go. You wouldn't expect that in a way, would you? There, I feel like the common feel around, the millionaire nowadays and the billionaire nowadays just seems to be so entrepreneurial in all cases, doesn't it? You always think it's going to be the business owner or the person who's done the startup and stuff. But that's a really interesting, metric right there. I never really actually knew that. So I'm glad you've mentioned that as well. And yeah, thanks for clearing that up, because, I wanted to ask a bit more about that thing when I saw that content on Instagram. So I'm glad to have a bit more info on that too. So, to drag it back to the beginning for someone else now, just for the fourth and final question, if you could have a minute to speak to everyone around the world who is in a similar place to where you were when just before you turned your life around, what would you tell them to get them to make the right decision and, 10x their lives and, get down on the right path again?
One of the first things is probably not what you would expect.
I'm looking forward to this now.
But you have to have patience. Me, just like anybody else, I had this entire list of things that I wanted to accomplish and the version of myself that I wanted to be, and I wanted it to happen yesterday. And I didn't realize that I was working in that direction, and I was making progress, but it didn't seem like it. And I got so frustrated all the time because it didn't ever seem like it was happening as fast as I wanted it to. So whether you're dealing with addiction or you're at a dead end job and you have more that you're capable of doing and you can offer more value, but you're a little bit nervous to leave that situation, or you're in a terrible relationship, whatever it is unless you are willing to put in the work, nothing's going to happen. Unless you're willing to change, your scenario is not going to change. But once you do decide to make that decision, put together that list, put your goals down, put your action plans together. And as long as you're doing something productive, pay attention to what you're doing, audit your time. And as long as you're doing something productive every day with every minute of your day, you are making progress, even though it doesn't seem like it's happening as fast as you would like it to. But you got to stick with it. What separates the extraordinary from the average and ordinary is the people that do all the small things consistently for long periods of time, like getting up early, reading out of personal development books, writing your goals down, taking care of your body and your mind. There's these really simple things that are not rocket science. The challenge that people have is doing any one of them consistently. So you got to start somewhere, but then build some momentum, build some consistency, and start to separate yourself just by showing up and doing all the small things consistently.
Yeah, that's brilliant advice. Actually, I saw something recently that struck true as well. Someone said, I think it might have been David Meltzer actually. He said that people think that, when you go at 100% or 10 out of 10, that, that's where the success is. But then they often realize when they get there that it's actually a very crowded place, 10 out of 10. It's that consistency day in, day out for a year, 5 years, or 10 years, every day going there, getting in the gym, getting on the business, making the content, putting it out there at that 10 out of 10, all the time. That's where, the actual success is nowadays, isn't it? Would you agree with that?
Sure is. Yep, absolutely.
There you go. Right. Well, that is our 4 questions done for today. And before we wrap it up, it is time for what I like to call the shameless plug. So, Jefferson, feel free to take a minute and promote anything that you're working on, you want people to take a look at, or just something that you believe in.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Louis. You guys can find me at Jefferson K. Rogers on pretty much all of the platforms. I got daily content going out. If you got a business, if you're struggling with leadership, communication, relationships, I'm sharing information on all of these things every day, twice, 3 times, sometimes 4 or 5 times, depending on the platform that you're looking at. Jump on, check me out. I'd love to be able to help. My cell phone's even on there. So if you want to reach out personally, I'll try and help you any way that I can. And then I got a book coming out, you guys, all in. Get unstuck, accelerate, and go further, faster. It's going to be launched first quarter of 2023. So I would love your support on the book as well. Along the same lines of personal development, business, overcoming addiction, becoming a great communicator and a leader. These are all the concepts that I'm talking about in the book, and it'll be the first of many, I'm sure. But appreciate the support. Appreciate you having me on today, Louis.
No problem. Yeah, guys, come on, give this guy some support. Go and follow that Instagram page and stuff. He's a powerhouse of content at the moment, and it's all such good and brilliant advice. And I can tell this book's going to be a good one. I'm definitely going to be grabbing my hands on one of them as soon as it comes out, Jefferson. But hey, man, thank you so much for joining me today for the Talk4 podcast. It has been an absolute pleasure having you on.
Thanks, Louis. Appreciate it.
No worries. Thank you guys for listening. This has been episode 36. And if you'd like to listen to our past episodes, go and have a look at our channel. And if you'd like to listen in for our future ones, make sure to hit that subscribe button and spread some love by leaving a like and a comment. Signing off for now.